All right, let's talk Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, the Chargers are in the thick of training camp right now, the first team to get going in this activity, and we're starting to see already some potential rookie steals emerging. In fact, one guy in particular that kind of flew under the radar over the course of the offseason and mini camps, he's off to a great start in training camp. And when you break down the data, it's easy to see why the Chargers are so excited on this kid. We'll break all that down in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, that is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Los Angeles Chargers, of course, have made a lot of headline draft picks over the past couple of years, and we've talked about a number of them over the course of this offseason, mainly focusing on the offensive side of the ball and primarily skilled position guys, right? Who are we going to surround Justin Herbert with? What playmakers are going to potentially emerge opposite of guys like Lad McConkey to push this offense onto the next level? But there's a guy on the defensive side of the ball, and we're talking safety RJ Mickens out of Clemson, who's flew under the radar over the course of the offseason, but he's off to a phenomenal start in training camp. The Chargers coaches have noted this in particular. That's what's really interesting. And the data, when you break down this kid, looks really good. Let's get into the article first, so we'll get into some of the analytics on the other side. This is courtesy of The Athletic. Rookie safety RJ Mickens flashed twice in a 4-play stretch of 11 on 11. On the first play, Mickens was in coverage on tight end McCall Castles near the right sideline. Castles ran an out route. Mickens broke hard on the route from depth. Quarterback Taylor Heineke delivered an accurate ball, but Castles made the initial catch. But Mickens jarred the ball loose with a violent punch, forcing the incompletion. Later in the same series, the offense faced a 4th and 1 around midfield. Heineke faked a handoff before rolling to his right. Receiver Des Fitzpatrick had leaked across the field to the deep right corner amid the play action. He was open. Heineke stopped his roll and floated a pass to Fitzpatrick. Mickens recognized the play fake and retreated before picking off the throw. Minter went on to say, I see a young guy that has a great intent about him of what he wants to do, how he wants to get better, Minter said about the Clemson product. I think he's been well trained in his college career of just how to play, some instincts. And so a competitive player in a competitive situation in that room that's got a good skill set, and look forward to see how that shakes out. All right, so one of the things that can happen during the early parts of training camp is we're starting to see which rookies, once we get a little more live, 11 on 11, a lot more of those team actions, as we get into full offense and defense installs, plays installed, strategies installed, to get into actually hyper-competitive scrimmaging. During mini camps and OTAs, that's present, but not nearly to the same degree as training camp. Now we're seeing real balls to the wall here, hyper competitive situation, make the roster, become a starter or not. And we're looking at all these guys knowing their livelihoods are on the line. We know the coaches, their livelihoods are on the line as they try and install the offenses and defenses for the upcoming 2025 season. Now's when you start to see, when the rubber meets the road, which rookies are ready to step up. And I know with a small sample size, a small collection of practices for the Chargers at this point, but Mickens has proven to be that guy, both by his performance on the field, according to reporting, and by what the coaching staff, namely Minter, is saying. But let's break down the data of RJ Mickens. And when you look at his numbers compared to his peers at the safety position coming out of college, it's pretty outstanding. In fact, when we talk about peers, we're talking about guys that were drafted much earlier than RJ Mickens. Mickens selected in the 6th round. You look at the 3 guys we're going to compare him against in this chart we're going to pull up. We're talking about a 1st rounder, 2nd rounder, and 4th rounder, Malachi Starks, Nick Amon-Mori, and Billy Bowman, working, again, 1st, 2nd, 4th round, left to right on your screen right there. And we broke down their overall defensive grade and their coverage grade, courtesy of Pro Football Focus, PFF. And you can see overall grade in blue, coverage grade in red, working left to right, Malachi Starks, Amon-Mori, Billy Bowman, and then RJ Mickens. You can see Mickens grades out significantly better than all of them in both categories. In terms of overall grade, he's significantly above them. Just clearly, you can look at the graph. In terms of coverage grade, he's much higher than Starks and Bowman, and a little bit higher than Amon-Mori. Now, I want to highlight something here, that we're not looking at slouches. We're not looking at guys that we're expecting to be bad players for these respective teams. We've covered Amon-Mori, we've covered Billy Bowman, we've talked about Malachi Starks. All 3 of these safeties, the other safeties mentioned, are quality football players. They were good football players in college. They project very well into the National Football League. In fact, they've already done some good things in terms of how they performed in minicamp and OTAs in their own right. It's just that Mickens, when you look at his numbers here, exceeds them. He outperforms them based on the numbers, based on the analytics. And when you look for comparative, trying to look for comparisons here, and you're trying to see, why did Mickens fall to the 6th round? There's a lot of questions about physical tools, technique, all of that. Does he have the elite level in terms of total composite skill set to be a safety? And that, in some ways, has been answered by his performance during training camp up to this point. Now, like I said originally, it's a small sample size. We'll have to see what happens over the course of camp, over the course of preseason. But his performance, his production based on the analytics in college was outstanding. And he played at Clemson, ACC, quality conference, quality school. It's not like, don't want to crap on the FCS here, but it's not like it was some FCS D1 AA program. He did a lot of good things at Clemson. He outperformed a lot of his colleagues, like the chart shows, during his collegiate ranks as the 2024 season, and now he's doing good things impressing the coaching staff. When you put all of this corroborating evidence together, it looks highly likely the Chargers have a massive steal emerging in the 6th-round selection. And one of the things that can happen over the course of camp in the preseason is we're going to see guys that no one expected. We'll see this throughout the entire National Football League emerge as quality players, guys that draft experts and all these pundits in the media said, he's not going to have any impact, but he ends up becoming a quality player. And I think at this juncture, again, it's early. I know I've said that a bunch, but I'll throw the caveat out there one more time. It looks like Mickens has a chance to be that kind of steal, that kind of addition to this Chargers defense. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Chargers fans, in the comment section below, we're talking RJ Mickens here. We're talking the safety position. So that leads me directly to my question for you guys today. Who is the greatest safety in Chargers history? There's a lot of different directions to go here. I can think of one guy in particular that played in the 90s and early 2000s before going on to win a few Super Bowls for a different team. That guy comes to mind, but I'll see what you guys have to say. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest safety in Chargers history? Let us know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure you sign up for our weekly newsletter, 100% free. It's on the Substack platform, a lot of extra content, throw a lot of different stuff there for you guys so you guys get your total NFL fix, easy format. We get a lot of great feedback from it. So make sure you sign up. Again, 100% free, link in the description box below. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest out of Los Angeles?
Yeah, Nick, one thing I've noticed a lot, and it's really started to come up in the last year or so, is these college players that have come out of, let's call it the COVID era of college, where, you know, years of eligibility seem to have not mattered and things got really crazy. Guys are becoming more and more experienced. This guy, RJ Mickens, he was at Clemson for 5 years, not incredibly long, with, fifth year seniors and stuff like that being normal beforehand, the guys are getting more and more experience as they get out of college. And that seems to be the case with a guy like RJ Mickens. And when you look in what he has done at Clemson, he has 4 solid years of a good amount of reps, a starting amount of reps, and he has 4 solid years of really great grades. He was a good player 4 straight years. 21, he had an 81.8 grade. 22, he had an 81.5 overall grade. 23, little bit dip here, but still, this isn't a bad grade at all, especially for a 6th-round guy, 73.4 grade. Then he caps it off with his best year yet in 2024 with 86.6 grade. So this is a guy, he's been really good for a long time here. And the other key for me here is when you're a younger player, you're trying to fit into a back end of a defense that already is kind of established. There's some good players back there. You have to be versatile, and that's exactly what I get out of a guy like RJ Mickens. This is a guy who, throughout his career, he has almost as many snaps at free safety as he does up in the box. And again, he has over like 300 snaps as a slot corner as well, totaling up the most 83 snaps as a slot corner in his final year in 2024. So this guy can do whatever you need him to do. He can scoot around the field. He can be a in the box type of safety, lay the wood on someone, stop the run. He can be that guy that needs to drop back into coverage. Notably, got 2 interceptions last year, already got 1 in camp, showing this guy's a ball hawk at the NFL level. So he can do what you need him to do. But RJ Mickens, he just seems like a solid player. And when you look at the depth of experience he has, the depth of good play he has had throughout his college career, it's kind of hard to believe that he fell all the way to the 6th round. We're talking, pretty far back there. We're talking about guys who usually are either really undersized or, don't have the physical tools. But this guy's 6 foot 210. He's not what I would consider necessarily undersized. He's not super tall, but I'd say that's average size for a safety. We're talking about guys who maybe don't have enough play time. This guy's had over 2,000 or almost 2,000 snaps in his career. Plenty of experience, plenty of play time. We're talking about guys that went to a small school maybe. This guy went to Clemson, like you said. A big school in the ACC. His team won national championships recently. Or we're just talking about guys who, maybe only really good at one thing. Seems like he can move around. So overall, I think all the factors together, RJ Mickens seems like a very quality player the Chargers have got. And I agree with you completely. This is the type of guy that's going to come out, surprise people with how big of a steal he was for them to get in the 6th round.
Yeah, one of the things to focus on when it comes to Mickens, particularly, and I think you brought up the COVID year example, is that prior to what happened with that extra year of eligibility and that kind of waiver situation that the NCAA passed down to all these players, is that there was an era where a lot of people, I think it was almost a vast majority, I don't have the data off the top of my head, left college as soon as possible, right? There'd be guys that would play 1 or 2 years as a starter if they redshirted their freshman year, right? And they'd be technically a junior, even though they had played only 2 years of college football and go to the NFL, right? Certainly most prospects when they were juniors would go to the NFL. It would be very rare you'd have a senior go to the NFL. In fact, if you had a guy who was a 5th year senior that went to the National Football League and he wasn't like, an offensive lineman or something like that, it would almost be a red flag. But one thing we've noticed over the course of this past offseason, and you highlighted this a second ago, is that we're seeing a return to experience. And we're seeing these experienced guys get off to great starts and make plays. We had an era of the NFL where it was all about the freak athlete. It was all about the incredible physical tools and rely on the coaches to figure it out. But in a new world and a new structure where everything becomes a Zoom call, a Zoom meeting, install remotely, and all these things that have happened in the corporate world, but have certainly trickled down to professional sports, the guy who's played the most snaps at the highest level is often the guy that plays very well early on in the National Football League. We're seeing a transition from, hey, I want if he's a junior that runs a great 4.3 40, he's going to be a great player for us. That doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in a long time. Teams are struggling. We're seeing more bust of this ilk. But we're also seeing in parallel with that, guys like RJ Mickens, who played a lot of good football, a lot of experience, good competition. They don't necessarily have perfect physical tools. Their tape may not be absolutely outstanding, but they're good at what they do. And they come to the National Football League and impress right away and become quality football players. Now, I'm not going to guarantee Mickens becomes a star or a starter or anything like that, but we're seeing a clear trend across the National Football League in terms of what young players, certainly rookies, get off to great starts and are more likely to contribute also in the long term. You look at Mickens' experience, talent, production, good competition. He checks all of those boxes. And I think going forward, we're going to see more teams implement this kind of model and bring in, certainly in the later part of the draft, guys with a lot of experience. Because in the past, like I said, people used the 6th round area to find, well, who could be a steal? Who could be a diamond in the rough, and just find a guy that's maybe inherently flawed, but maybe there's something special there. I think we're going to see a shift in a rotation to guys who actually, are good at football and play a lot of football. RJ Mickens making plays early on in training camp and pressing defensive coordinator Minter, I think it is a sign that the strategy is a good one the Chargers have implemented. I'm excited to see what Mickens does going forward. And again, we're seeing a Chargers team, and this is critically important, building out a line of quality depth of experienced football players. You never want to get in a postseason or a late season situation where you have to throw in a rookie, throw in a young guy, and guess what? He's played 12 games of college football, and at the D1 FCS level, and say, well, we drafted him because we thought he was a great athlete, and now you got to rely on him to show up in a playoff game. That's a recipe for disaster. But if something were to happen and Mickens has to be thrust into the spotlight this season, he's a 5-year player, Clemson, ACC, good coaching staff. He's been there before. He has the experience. He could step up when his number is called. This was a great addition by the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm kind of disappointed I didn't see it earlier this offseason, but we're seeing it now in training camp, and I'm excited to see what he does going forward.